welcome to the Week 11 edition of the Monster Pod. Matt Brown and that handsome gentleman, Noops Christensen. Find his work over at lineups.com. And we're going to run through each and every game here on the Week 11 slate, give you all of our thoughts on bets, on leans, on games we absolutely hate, survivor, talk, props, the whole 9 yards. If you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Everything we do absolutely free. Noops, one down, one is in the books, went exactly like everybody thought. And I mean exactly, because it landed on 13 and the spread was 13. So the Patriots win by 13 to start off Week 11 here, advancing what I assume is going to be 35 to 40% of most survivor pools out there. So good on all of you that had the Patriots left. I did not. So it will be an interesting click for me this week over in Circa Survivor. And it will not be on this game that starts over in Madrid, Spain. 2.5 in favor of Miami over Washington. 47.5 is our total here in this one. Noops, of course, we know no Jaden Daniels, no Terry McLaurin. And with that, we get us a Miami Dolphin team that is favored despite the fact that they have not looked so great this season themselves.
You know, in a week full of good games. I mean, this is unbelievable. We have so many good games to watch this week. I'm kind of glad that this went on is nice and early in the morning. We don't necessarily have to watch this. If you're on the West Coast, you can sleep in because, I mean, the Washington Commanders, what a depressing story. I think we all knew coming into the season they would take a step back, but not this far of a step back. And it's so sad watching this team. But are they as bad as they've looked the last 3 weeks? They've had to play the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and the Lions. Those are 3 of the best teams in the league. How many teams would look good against any of them, let alone all 3? So it's tough to sort of wrap my head around that. At the same time, you know, the Dolphins, it's 1 week good, 1 week bad, 1 week good, 1 week bad. So I think this is the week they're supposed to look bad. It's just unclear. And a team where, you know, we've been making jokes all season about Mike McDaniels looking like a dead man walking, but they continue to find ways to score points. So it's a spot where I should probably bet the over, but it's our first game ever in Madrid.
Yeah.
We just don't know what the field's going to look like. And we've seen, especially in some of these first games in these different foreign countries, these fields that are designed mostly for soccer maybe aren't built for kind of the, you know, honestly, the heft of the players, the amount of force that's going to be put into the field over and over again. So a little worried about the field condition. If I was more confident in that, would play the over. Still think that's a solid bet, but I haven't put it in the account.
Yeah, I think I could probably only play the Dolphins here given how terrible this defense has been for Washington. So it's kind of like if you look and you want to compare the 4 units that are going to be on the field, by far the worst one out there is the Commanders defense that is ranked over the last month or so of the season, quite literally last or second to last in every single major statistical category that you can find out there. So, I mean, it is very, very bad on the defensive side of the ball for them. I don't know why I haven't made the click on the Dolphins yet, Noops. And so when I don't know why I haven't made the click, despite there being kind of overwhelming evidence to go in that direction, I tend to kind of just lay off of those games because I'm like, dude, something's keeping you from doing it. And if that's the case, then it's probably not the right play.
Discretion is the better part of valor. It's always better not to lose a bet than to maybe win a bet. So totally understand that. Again, it's the Dolphins. I just don't know how you can feel confident about them in any way.
Packers on the road at the New York Football Giants. This is a full touchdown in favor of the Packers. 42.5 is our total here in this one. Jameis Winston will take over at quarterback for the Giants as we are in concussion protocol there with Jackson Dart, and they have moved on from Russ Wilson. Russ Wilson is no longer cooking. He is no longer microwaving. He is no longer anything. Russ might be the opposite. He might be put in the freezer, and he might just be getting stored up there in football. So down to, looking at this, Noops, this Packers team, we talked about this literally, I think, on this pod for the last 3 or 4 weeks, where it's just have not seen 60 minutes from this team. And again, just still have not seen 60 minutes from this team since game 1 of the season. And I don't understand it. The talent is still there. It's, in and out of health with the wide receiver core, but it's so deep. They've got a lot of different dudes that they run out there. I understand losing Kraft was big. He was your only real, consistent weapon on a week-to-week basis. But, man, I don't know. I don't feel comfortable laying a touchdown with the Green Bay Packers really right now against, I would almost say anyone other, maybe other than the Titans, because of just their inconsistencies.
You can't feel good about Green Bay. A lot of times we talk about teams that are hard to figure out. Usually they're bad teams or teams that are kind of hanging around average. You've got this just incredibly talented Packers team that continues to be market rated pretty high that has not had a great win all season. I mean, outside of week one against Detroit, and that's week one. I don't know how much we can really trust that. And again,
Exactly.
that was 2.5 months ago. Um, just confusing losses
And
tying to
what's
the
the perception
Cowboys.
on those two teams now, right? I mean, the Lions rocketing up the board, atop everybody's power ratings in this Packers team. Here we are going, who the hell is this team as we enter week 11?
I know, and it's a game where you don't have to bet it, but if you're in Survivor and you've made it this far and you didn't take the Patriots on Thursday, you're stuck with some pretty tough choices. And I think one of them is Green Bay, where again they're better than this Giants team, and I'm excited to see Jameis. And hats off to us. We predicted basically that Russell Wilson might never start again earlier in the season, and this certainly helps seeing Jameis come into this game. But there's just not enough talent here. Scattaboo is gone. Neighbors is gone. There's just really not a pass catcher or a runner here. But at the same time, this Packers O-line is kind of a mess if you look at the injury report, and that's going to be really dangerous against this Giants defense. So I have just so many thoughts kind of on either side of this. I do think we'll see some points in this game, but was hoping for something closer to 40.5 than 42.5. So lean towards the over. And, if you've got to take the Packers this week in Survivor, best of luck to you. Say all your prayers, whatever rituals you have to do, really stretch it out because you're just never going to feel good about it.
So your lean is the bet that I actually went ahead and pulled the trigger on. So I'm glad that you're leaning that way as well. So I played the over 42.5. And the thing here for me, Noops, is I actually embrace the variance that Jameis Winston brings to this game, right? Like, we have seen a good Jameis Winston game where he can throw for 350 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns. And then we've also seen terrible games where he'll throw for 3 or 4 picks. All of that actually plays towards an over for me. Like, it's actually a good thing for me that he brings so much variance to it. And you mentioned, I mean, look, if the Packers are ever going to have a game in which this offense just looks good for the majority of the game, it better be against this Giants team. I mean, like, they are also, we just talked about how bad the Commanders are, but the Giants are right there with them as far as futility on the defensive side of the ball over the last month and a half of the season. And so I think Green Bay should be able to score. I embrace the variance I get with Jameis, whether that is good Jameis that scores points and helps me get close to the over, or bad Jameis that throws picks and gives me short fields or defensive scores and all of that as well. So I played the over 42.5, and hopefully I don't get like just somewhere in between Jameis that doesn't get me anything. I don't get the turnovers, but I don't get the touchdowns either. So hopefully I definitely get one of the polar ends of Jameis Winston.
No, I love everything you said there, and I agree. What Jameis does is brings a lot of variance to the game. That's a good thing for points. He's going to be pushing the ball down the field or throwing it to the other team. Either way, we're going to see short fields and quick possessions. And the Packers do like to play that way as well. They're a team that does look down the field. Jordan Love has a great deep ball, and we'll see if kind of how that goes today. So I like that, and I would say if you're playing the over, sprinkle some alts too, because this thing could really get out of hand.
Tampa Bay is on the road at Buffalo. 5.5 is our total here in this one, though at Fanatics, we just flashed to a 6. So 1-6 out there in favor of Buffalo. 46.5 is our total here in this one. We'll be watching the injury reports. We got Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving back at practice on a limited basis this week for Tampa Bay. That obviously is a good thing, probably a really bad thing for Buffalo if Bucky Irving's able to play, considering how poor their run defense has been, Noops.
Yeah, this is a spot where, both of these teams really have to win this game. They're kind of in free fall here, and I don't think that either are in danger of missing the playoffs if they lose this game, but I think you get to be really close to that line if you can't come home with a victory. So, it should be a spot where we see every team push as hard as they can, and I think that what we'll see is a really exciting football game. I'm expecting a lot of points here. We look at Tampa Bay. Yes, Baker's level has dropped a little bit from what we saw earlier in the season. He's not carrying these guys to victory, but a big part of that is he's missing so many players. And I'm a little optimistic about Irving and a little optimistic about Godwin. If we get both of those in, I think the Bucs offense will be in good shape. If we get even one of those guys, I think we'll get back to seeing them score some points in bunches. And Buffalo, as tough as it's been for them, they still continue to put up points on the board. So I had this total closer to 49.5, almost 50. Happy to bet the over here at 47.5 in a game where, again, both teams don't mind running the ball, but it's not going to be a slow-paced game. There's going to be both teams pushing here to score points in bunches. So give me the over.
Yeah, it is this to me actually a pretty fascinating game, even though it's not going to really play into. It doesn't look like Buffalo's going to be the one seed in the AFC. Tampa obviously not going to be the one seed over there, but it is an interesting game just to see what both of these teams are going to do. Tampa coming out of a bye, Buffalo coming off of that horrific loss. Like, are you guys for real, or were we kind of like pumping up the tires a little bit too much on you?
Again, it's really hard to figure out because I watch a lot of these Bills games and I don't see anything. There's nothing that jumps off the page to me that's a problem. I mean, the defense wasn't really elite last year, kind of never has been, which I still wonder why Sean McDermott can't sort of pull these guys together. But there's just not one single thing that really blows me away. And as I look through some of the advanced stats and things, it still looks like a really good team. But week in and week out, it's, again, maybe they're kind of like the Packers version, of an AFC team where it's 2 to 3 quarters a good play, and that other quarter and a half is where things fall apart.
And as soon as I'm glad this came through while we're doing this, so I get the push notification. Todd Bowles, both Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin are out. Out for Sunday. So
still like the over.
They misdiagnosed Bucky Irving something fierce. He has now been out 2 months. He did not go on IR. So they thought that he was going to be back in 3 weeks. And now we're coming up on 8 weeks that he's been gone. Why did you have him take up a roster spot? You would have just put him on IR and been able to whatever. So this was bad on some, or maybe he re-aggravated it and they just didn't let us know that he re-aggravated it or whatever it is. But man, this has been a really weird deal with him because not moving to IR and now we're coming on the 8th week that he's been out.
It's very concerning and something where, the Buccaneers front office is going to have to look and figure out kind of what went wrong here. Because you're right. It's not just that he's out. It's that they've cost themselves a roster spot. And I know it's 53. It's only one of 53 spots, but it makes a big difference, again, for a team that has had injuries up and down the roster here. So a big failure by them.
Cincinnati and Pittsburgh, another 5.5 here in this one, that kind of dead zone when it comes to spreads. 49 is our prevailing total, a couple of 49.5s out there. Do not freak out when you see that Cincinnati opened up Joe Burrow's window. It is targeted for week 13 or 14 for him to come back. So it will be Joe Flacco in this game. Noops, Pittsburgh, good game a couple of weeks ago. Defense really showed out. And then it kind of is back to the Pittsburgh that we've seen over the last, really the course of the entire season. Really weird game here. It is Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson both out for Cincinnati. So any sort of pass rush the Bengals might have is now not there. This is an interesting handicap for sure.
It's a really tough game to wrap your head around, and maybe it just comes down to the fact that the Steelers have been good against bad defenses and bad against good defenses. Now, kind of the exception there is the loss to Cincinnati, which is still a bad defense. And they did beat the Colts. It's kind of solid, but Indianapolis had a lot of injuries in the defense there. And I think we saw last week, the Chargers defense was able to control this game. And honestly, Aaron Rodgers looked a little bit scared. He's been definitely deteriorating in terms of performance all season. But, I saw a couple moments in that game where he was afraid to get hit. He threw the ball a little bit early, made some bad throws basically because, he's afraid of getting hit. And luckily this week, that shouldn't really be a problem. The Bengals defense, even with Trey Hendrickson, is bad. Without him, just monumentally poor unit. But can we trust Rodgers? Is he still going to be ready to step up into the pocket and make the throws he needs to make? At the same time, or is Mike Tomlin still having nightmares about Joe Flacco? All that stuff was just so strange to me. So it's a spot where I think the Steelers should be able to wallop this team. They should be fairly in control offensively. I don't see any reason they can't score points in bunches, but it's just they've been so uneven here. So lean to the Steelers, and I think their team total over at 27.5 is going to be a bet maybe for me Sunday morning. I just want to kind of think on it some more and continue to research it because, again, I think the Steelers can score as many points as they want. But we know Tomlin loves to kick field goals. We know he loves to run out the clock. So everything to me screams Pittsburgh. I just don't have the cojones to do it.
Yeah, so I did something I didn't really want to do here in this one because I am relying on two different people as opposed to just, an entire team or whatever. I played DK Metcalf over 52.5 yards. He's the wide receiver one going up against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL and should not be able to get any pressure on the quarterback. I mean, what we saw last week was Aaron Rodgers. I don't think his brain allows him to realize that he's 41 and not 31 anymore. And so when he's getting that pressure, he's still trying to throw off his back foot and he's still trying to do a little bit of escapability and all of that. And it's like, you don't have that quickness anymore, dude. You don't have the arm strength to throw off your back foot anymore, dude. Like, you've got to just do what Tom Brady did when he became 40 and you just self-sack. You see the pressure coming and you just fall down and you live to see another day, right? And like, that's how Brady was able to extend his career as long as he did. And you've got Rodgers trying to do things that he did 10 years ago. That being said, I don't think he's going to have to pull a rabbit out of his hat here in this one because Cincinnati doesn't get any pressure anyway, and the two dudes that could aren't going to be in there. And so, you know, I know it doesn't look like him and DK Metcalf have been on the same page really all season long, but it's 52.5 yards. It is the obvious wide receiver one for this team against an atrocious pass defense that shouldn't have any pass rush either. I'll fall for the banana in the tailpipe here on this. So I played DK over 52.5.
Hey, I'm someone who bet Justin Fields over his passing yards last night. One of the lowest passing yards totals we've seen since Malik Willis was starting football games. So I get it. And maybe sometimes it's just that easy because especially with the way Metcalf plays and as much as Rodgers has struggled, he still likes to throw the ball downfield. You could get this in 2 catches.
So let's hope that happens. 52.5 and 2 catches would be awesome. And then I can just move on with my day. Turn this game off and I'll have to watch it.
Yes.
Houston and Tennessee. This is also sitting 5.5 at most places. It is 6 at MGM. It is 6 at Circa in favor of Houston, and 37 to 37.5 is our total. Tennessee coming out of a bye. Houston will be without CJ Stroud, who did not clear concussion protocol, and so it will be Davis Mills going for Houston here in this one. I guess the question we have to ask ourselves here, Noops, is Davis Mills came in and he was thrown into action, and I think he looked fine. Like, I thought he was fine. And now, I mean, they knew that Stroud wasn't going to play. I mean, he when he was not able to even get in a limited on Wednesday, they knew that he was going to get ruled out. So, like, Davis Mills has now had a week to prepare to be the starter to go against the worst defense in the NFL. Is that going to be enough?
I think so. I think when you look at Davis Mills, you have to also consider the fact that, unlike a lot of backup quarterbacks that we see, he was a regular starter at some point and not really too far ago. Before Stroud was the quarterback, he was the starter here in Houston. And I love what you said about the time to prepare. Again, a lot of times these backups is kind of a surprise. I think the Texans knew, with Stroud. And again, not that any concussion is more major than any other, but it seemed pretty clear that Stroud was going to be out this week, early in the week. So I think Mills will be prepared. And like you said, he probably doesn't have to be that well prepared going up against the Tennessee Titans defense that is just awful. I mean, how sad must it be to be a Tennessee Titan at this point? Not even just a fan, but to go out there every week with that team knowing you're probably just going to get slaughtered and just trying to basically survive till next week. So Texans, I think, are a very interesting pick and survivor, again, in a week where, unless you play the Patriots on Thursday, you don't really have a lot of teams to feel great about. And a backup quarterback on the road in a division game, that's a lot of scary words all at once for a survivor pool. But I think what this comes down to is the Texans defense is far and away the most elite unit in this game. It's arguably the best defense in the NFL. They are just going to control everything that happens in this game. So I'm just going to take a Titans team total under. I thought it was going to be 14.5. It's 15.5. I'm pretty sure that extra point is irrelevant, but at the very least, we got a little extra value for what I was hoping to bet. This Titans offense has just been so bad. And Cam Ward, I feel for him. I hope they can find an offensive coordinator or a coach, somebody in this offseason that can really help him grow and maximize his talents, because there are flashes. From time to time, you see something that looks like it could be a really great quarterback, but has no help, especially with Calvin Ridley gone at this point. It's just kind of a sad situation. So I think you fade the Titans any way you want. Texans minus 5.5 is a perfectly fine bet. I like Titans team total under better.
I hope you're right about all that, because I am going to have to make that click this week. So it is going to be the Texans for me. Down to 1,000 entries in Circa Survivor from 18,000. I'm still alive, but it is the scariest click of the season for me for sure. But man, if I go out against the worst team in the NFL, then I just go out against the worst team in the NFL, right? They've won one game all year. I mean, they've won one game all year. And so if that's the way I go out, Noops, then that's the way I go out, you know?
That's what you got to do. That's why it's Survivor. It's a scary, scary thing. This is not fun. It's about survival. And, sometimes you just got to do it and hope for the best.
The Bears on the road at the Vikings. This is 2.5-3 in favor of the Vikings. 48.5 is our total here in this one. Said this on the pod last week, and I still believe this to be the case for me, which is I think there's only two teams. We're far enough into the season. I pretty much moved off all priors. I think I have a good idea of what most of these teams are, except for Minnesota and Baltimore, just because the data is so really skewed because of how the situation broke for when their quarterbacks went down, how many injuries there were on the defensive side over on the Ravens as well, and all of that. So those are the only two teams I feel like I don't really have a good read on so far, and that's why I think that this is so perplexing to me, Noops, that the Vikings are favored.
I couldn't agree more. I don't quite understand this line. And it's something where, if you don't understand it, sometimes you should stay away. But I think a lot of this comes down to the Vikings defense being power rated much higher than they really deserve to be. You look at DVOA, they're kind of an average defense, maybe slightly better than average.
Yeah.
And there's a really ugly injury report. Grenard is questionable. Van Ginkel's questionable. Metellus is questionable. Theo Jackson's questionable. Those are all really big pieces for them. And if even one of those guys is out, again, you're looking at kind of like a league average defense with what has mostly been a bad offense. Now, J.J. McCarthy might be good someday. Not today. He is not a good quarterback at this point. He looks overwhelmed. And again, you see flashes. From time to time, he makes some incredible throws and puts together drives, but cannot really play 4 good quarters. And although the Bears' defense isn't spectacular, they're not bad. I don't think that there's anything the Vikings offense is going to do that's really going to surprise the Bears. And at the same time, that Chicago's offense continues to get better every week. I know Caleb Williams, we haven't seen a lot of the advanced numbers on him improve, but I think Ben Johnson just getting more familiar with what he can do, what he can't do, and kind of how to maximize basically what is a team with some pretty good skill position players, honestly. So this is a spot where I like the Bears. I think you can play them on the money line. I'm going to take the 2.5 points just in case it kind of gets funky at the end of the game, but I like Chicago here quite a bit.
Wow, we do not compare our notes whenever we head into this. Want to make sure that we have our own opinions. And I can tell you, I played the Bears. I actually got the 3. Circa was generous enough to leave a 3 up for a while out here in Vegas. And so at a full field goal, I just couldn't quite get there. One of the things that's super interesting to me is what Flores is going to do against Caleb Williams, because they blitzed him at a season low for them because they just blitz, so incredibly often. They only blitzed him on 30% of dropbacks in that week 1 matchup. Do they change that? Do they keep it the same? Whatever. It depends on what they think they see on tape. If you go by just the numbers, Caleb Williams, shockingly enough, is actually 5th in the NFL as far as EPA against the blitz, mainly because he scrambles so well against the blitz. Like, that's when he really takes off and feels like if you don't get home on that pressure, Caleb Williams is actually a pretty talented scrambler and has done so very, very well against blitzes so far this year when they have not gotten home on him. And so I don't know if Minnesota's going to dial it up a little bit more, Noops, or if they're just going to kind of sit back a little bit more like they did in week 1 and not allow him to utilize his legs and just say, hey, we don't think you're a talented enough passer to beat us, so we're just going to make you pass it and see if you can beat us that direction. It'll be a fun little chess match to see how they go about doing this.
Yeah, I agree. And, if I'm making that decision, I'm going to try to force Caleb Williams to throw the ball as much as I can. Try to be creative, sending 3-4 guys at a time. But every time you send an extra guy, I agree, you're actually forcing Caleb Williams to do what he does best, run the ball.
Carolina on the road at Atlanta. Carolina lays the egg last week, and they knock out the number 1 selection over in survivor pools. And they're going to head on the road to Atlanta as 3.5-point dogs. This one has a 42 prevailing total with 41.5s out there as well. Shop around if you're looking to play the over in that thing. But boy, this is a weird one. I mean, the Falcons, considering how roller coaster they have been all year, Noops, and they're on the other side of a field goal here against Carolina. What say you?
This is one of the most confusing games of the week for me. This Carolina team, I can't believe that they lost that game last week against the Saints. I even went back and watched it again, and I still can't figure out kind of what happened there. It's just, at times Bryce Young seems like he's a good quarterback, and at other times he's just lost out there. And against this Falcons defense, which looks like they're going to be mostly healthy this week. I think one of the big problems for them is they've had some guys missing. A few key pieces are questionable here, but it looks like maybe they're leaning towards playing. And I think maybe that's why the line is set here. And again, as we talked about earlier in one of the games, a lot of football comes down to which unit is the best. And the Falcons defense is probably the best unit in this game, almost certainly the best unit if the injury report goes their way. So I just really what I see here is a really clear correlation between the total and the team. I think if the Panthers are going to cover this game and win it, we're going to see a lot of points. The Panthers have really struggled to win games unless they've scored, 27, 28, 30 points. Whereas the Falcons, they like a nice, ugly football game. So I think if you do feel strongly about either side, take some, whether you want to tease them together or just kind of do a parlay or something. I think there's a lot of correlation between, again, Falcons and under, Panthers and over. I still tend to lean towards the Panthers. My numbers just like that team, not as a good team, but I would have this closer to like 2.5 than 3.5. And that difference is pretty big, but I still can't get myself to grab the 3.5 with Carolina.
Yeah, I thought I would probably be wanting to play Rico Dowdle in this game. The Falcons' pass defense is exponentially better than their run defense, but Dowdle kept popping up on the injury report this week, and it's a quad with a running back and all of that. And they do still have Chuba Hubbard, so maybe they don't like overexpose him to the. So I can't get there. So I just once that started happening, and you do have a clear kind of like experienced. It's crazy that now Chuba Hubbard's considered the backup there because he was like supposed to go crazy this year for this Panthers team. But yeah, I don't know, couldn't get there. Too many variables, so I ended up passing and ultimately just passing on this game. The LA Chargers are on the road at Jacksonville, so they will make the long trek from LA over to Jacksonville for an early game. This is a full field goal in favor of the Chargers over the Jags. 43.5 to 44 is our total here, Noops.
It's very interesting to say this, but the Chargers might be the healthier team in a football game for the first time in what feels like months. You look at the Jaguars offense, 4 out of 5 offensive linemen for the Jaguars are questionable. Brian Thomas now having physical problems to go along with, some seemingly mental issues to start the season. They've already lost Travis Hunter, and now Parker Washington, arguably their most productive receiver this season, is listed as questionable as well. They lost Brenton Strange earlier in the year. Now Hunter Long, their tight end, is questionable. It's just too many missing pieces for Trevor Lawrence, who continues to look talented, but absolutely has no consistency whatsoever and just isn't growing. He's the same quarterback he was 3-4 seasons ago. And this just looks like a spot where, I think the Chargers are going to be in control of this game. It feels kind of like a classic Chargers game where it's, maybe 2017, 2016, something like that. Just an ugly, boring, sort of slow football game the whole way through. The Chargers defense has been much better since getting a little bit healthy. They're actually the best defense in the NFL by DVOA if you just filter on the last 3 weeks. So like the Chargers here, was close to betting a Jags team total under, but I'm seeing only 20.5. Was hoping to get under 21.5. I still think that's the best bet on the board, but I haven't made it.
In what could be kind of a co-game of the week, we have a couple of bangers for sure.
Yes.
Seattle is going to travel to LA to take on the Rams. The Rams are sitting 3.5 in this one as favorites over Seattle. 48.5 to 49 is our total. Noops. I do power ratings as anyone who kind of takes this seriously does each and every week, and I am perfectly fine saying that the Rams were the number one team in my power ratings this week. I think that they have been the most complete team in the NFL through the first 10 weeks. And I can't believe it took me this long to get them to the top of the list, considering how elite Matthew Stafford has played, 2 legitimately awesome weapons at receiver, now a 2-headed monster in the backfield. Offensive line has kept him upright, and this defense has exceeded expectations and played so much better as well. All that to be said, that I took 3.5 points with Seattle because Seattle is my number 3 power rated team. And so with that, I cannot get to the other side of a field goal, especially when we're talking about no home field advantage. I mean, like the Rams at that stadium is not a home field advantage of any sort or whatever. And so the fact that I could get the other side of a field goal against my third ranked team versus my first ranked team, in which I would give home field advantage maybe a half a point in this thing. I mean, it is a 30-minute flight from Seattle down to LA. It's not like this is a long travel thing or whatever. And again, the crowd is probably going to be 70-30, 60-40 anyway, in this thing. So it was a way of telling you I love the Rams, but not by 4 points.
It makes sense to me. I mean, in a season where we've yet to see a truly dominant team, I think the winner of this game has a very clear stake on possibly being the best team in the NFL. I think the reason we're seeing the spread come out a little bit, it looks like the starting center for the Seahawks is going to be out, and Gray Zabel, their left guard, is listed as questionable. If Gray Zabel is out, it's a really tough spot to come into a big game like this against a great Rams defense that can create pressure without, two of your key interior linemen. So hopefully for your Seattle bet, we'll see Gray Zabel play. But this game's just going to be awesome. And the best way I can describe how fun this afternoon slate is, I am not a multi-TV guy. I am not someone who's got a wall with like 6, 7, 9 TVs. I don't understand how anyone does that. I got one TV and I'm flipping around as much as I can. I'm trying to find a second TV to set up this week so I can watch Seahawks Rams at the same time as I can watch Broncos Chiefs. These games are just going to be spectacular. So as far as Seahawks Ram goes, just a huge game for the number 1 seed. They do play once more towards the end of the year, but whoever wins this game is going to have a big leg up there. It seems like kind of a divisional under game, honestly, where it should kind of be, I think, a little bit of an ugly team with 2 good defenses and kind of control the offenses. But there's just so much talent on the offensive side of the ball. McVay is as creative a play caller as anybody. Mike McDaniel, the coach for the Seahawks, has been really great this season, and Darnold with Shaheed, with Jackson Smith and Jigba have got 2 receivers that can really stretch the field out. So lean towards the under, and I feel like I should bet it, but maybe I'm just too excited for this game. It's going to be awesome. I just don't have any great bets for it.
Listen, this is why we needed McDaniels down in Miami to get fired, and then we could just know that it's Mike McDonald in Seattle, and then we wouldn't have to worry about whether we're saying it right or not. We needed McDaniels to get fired, and then it was just easy because it was McDonald, and whatever. Trust me, it's a thing every time that it goes on in my head as well. Just a banger of an afternoon slate. I mean, we don't normally get them like this, so I'm taking it in for sure. Can't wait for that game. San Francisco is going to be. Take that short trip down to Phoenix to play the Cardinals as 3-point favorites over the Cardinals. 48.5 is our total. We are getting Brock Purdy back in this one for the 49ers, and we are getting Jacoby Brissett again for the Cardinals. And I don't know if that really matters from a handicapping perspective for you guys out there, because he's actually put up pretty decent numbers and certainly comparable to what we were getting from Kyler Murray under center here for the Cardinals. I don't know, me personally, Noops, what I think the difference is between Brock Purdy and Mac Jones at this point from a number perspective. I thought Mac Jones played quite well considering everything that was going on. I mean, he had no receivers for a while. I mean, the offensive line was getting nicked up, then the defense was putting him in bad positions because they were all nicked up and all that. So I don't know if this is an upgrade or not, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you look through, the problem hasn't really been the offense for the 49ers. They scored 26 points against the Rams, 34 against the Giants, now only 15 against the Texans, but 20 against the Falcons. It's really been the defense that has struggled here. I mean, led up 42 to the Rams, 24 to the Giants, 26 to the Houston Texans, and just a mess of a football game. And it's a situation where it's got to be a kitchen sink game for the 49ers. If they lose this game, it's going to be almost impossible for them to get back into the playoff hunt, especially with the way the top of the NFC is starting to finally coalesce here. So I do wonder if it's a situation where you back the 49ers simply because we know Shanahan's a good coach. We know that he can figure out how to beat this team, but Arizona's looked solid. I mean, Brissett has been better than Kyler Murray was. I'm happy to say that. The offenses look better, a lot more cohesive, and I think the Cardinals organization agrees since they just decided to shut Kyler Murray down. They basically had him out for a couple weeks. He practiced a little bit, and they just kept looking at it and said, you know what, let's just shut Murray down. Let's end this discussion really here. So it's a spot where I'm not actually sure the 49ers deserve to be favored here, especially kind of in a decent way. So But at the same time, I just can't get there with the Cardinals. I think it's one of those teams where they can keep games close, but it's just not a great football team. What I will say is both defenses are kind of a mess. I was hoping to get the over here at like 45.5, maybe 46.5. Looking at 48.5. Still might bet it a little bit later, but I'm going to wait and see if maybe I can get that to tick down. I like the over here.
We have Baltimore on the road at Cleveland, and this is currently 7.5 in favor of Baltimore with a total of only 39 here in this one, Noops. Now let me go ahead and do our whole little weather check here, because this is a game that everyone kind of has their eye on as to what may or may not be going down. Looks like what we're saying here, around 20 miles an hour, gusts 25 to 30 is kind of what we're looking at here. It's not optimal, but it's not death. Like when it gets over 20, it's sustained, and then the gusts get into the mid 30s and 40s. That's when you really, really start to see a bunch of stuff going on here. But it's definitely something that we need to factor into the handicap.
Absolutely. And you've also got to kind of consider that this Ravens team now, they've had 3 easy games, won all 3 of those. They've got 2 more easy games here, and they need them all. But it'll be the 3rd consecutive road game for Baltimore. That's always really tough for teams. So maybe even if things aren't too windy, we just don't see their very best because, if you're Baltimore, do you have to score more than 21 points to win this game? Probably not. I wonder if you even have to score 20 points to beat Dylan Gabriel, who seemingly can't throw, a 5-6 yard out route. One of the simplest throws a quarterback is asked to make regularly, and has just really struggled here. So I'm not sure how the Browns put up points here, as bad as the Ravens defense has been. And at the same time, just not sure that the Ravens are going to be really pushing here as hard as they can to put up points in bunches to try to win this game by a lot. Again, knowing that they've been on the road for a long time, and they've got a couple games they still have to win before they feel comfortable about winning this division and being in the playoff hunt. So I think this might be a slight letdown spot for the Ravens. I wonder if Browns plus 7.5 is a good bet, simply because I think the back door is going to be open in the 4th quarter, but I'm not putting my hard-earned money on Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, it's kind of like what you said. I think I'd probably play the Browns or pass, mainly because I just don't have any body of work for Baltimore. At least I know what I'm getting into with Cleveland. They're probably going to put some pressure on Lamar. Lamar was dealing with a knee injury. He is going to start, but Lamar DNP'd on Wednesday, was just needed some rest for a knee thing that he's got, which is different than the hamstring that kept him out. The Browns, for what it's worth, I mean, the defense has played pretty tough for the majority of the year. They have multiple sacks in every game but 2 this year. I just, other side of a touchdown, it seems like a lot, considering I haven't really seen Baltimore a ton, but I don't want to, like you, don't want to lay it there with the Browns. So it'll just be a watch for me in a nice little afternoon window that also features the Kansas City Chiefs on the road at the Denver Broncos, that could really seal the deal for the Broncos in the division here if they were able to get this done. They will have to do it as 3.5 to 4 point dogs to Kansas City. 44.5 to 45 is our total. We get push notifications here as we are doing this pod. Andy Reid says Xavier Worthy practiced today and is fine and will be fine for the game. So if you were worried about what was going to go on with that, I'll tell you what I'm worried about, Noops. It's not so much the any particular singular player. It is just the defense, the Denver offensive unit as a whole, in which it looks like they can't figure out when they want to run it, when they want to pass it, what plays to call at the right time, and whatever. It has been clunky all season long. It was clunky again last week. I don't know, man. I know it's the other side of a field goal. I know it's Denver and you're going up to play in altitude and all of that stuff, and it can get weird with all of that. But Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes off of a bye with 2 weeks to prepare. I get it. The Denver defense is good, but can Denver score enough? What if they only score 20? What if the Chiefs only score 20? Can Denver cover even if the Chiefs only score 20? That's kind of the question I have to ask myself.
This is a really tough game to handicap because, if this Broncos team somehow wins this game late by close, it's their season. The universe, karma, whatever higher power you believe in has decided it's the Broncos' year. This should be kind of a smash spot for Kansas City. But again, this Denver team at home, they've been really good. I still wonder if the Chiefs offense can kind of reach the heights we expect them to with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy on the field. But again, Andy Reid off a bye. I don't have the numbers in front of me. He is one of the best coaches in history off the bye, not just straight up, but also against the spread. This is kind of a must-win spot for the Chiefs. If they lose this game, they drop to 5-5, 2 games out of the 6th seed, and they've got the Colts next week, which is not going to be an easy game for them. So it's a spot where, again, I think we're going to see everything Kansas City has in this game. I'm expecting, some trick plays from Andy Reid. I wonder if I can find a way to bet over 2.5 players to throw a touchdown. But the problem there, Matt, would be is I need Bo Nix to throw a touchdown, and I don't even know if I could rely on that. This Broncos offense has just been a mess. So I've been staring at Broncos plus 3.5, and I think that's the best bet. Again, my numbers here tell me this game should be closer to 2.5, maybe a cheap 3. So again, the difference between that and 3.5 is pretty solid, but I just can't fade the Chiefs here off a bye.
It's just, I know it's one of those, and I agree though. I mean, Denver, for what it's worth, and I can sit here and say that I think that this team is fake, and I think that I can't wait to bet against them in the playoffs and yada, yada, yada. You can't take the wins away from them. The wins are banked. And so like they're in the house and they figured out ways to get it done, whether it was ugly or not. They got it. And it's hard to do in the NFL. So credit where credit is due, even though my eyeball test says like this team is fugazi. I mean, it just like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what my eyes say.
No, absolutely. And again, a lot of this stuff comes down to which coach and quarterback you trust. And I can't think of a more trustworthy pair than Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes coming off a bye.
Sunday night football. It is going to be Detroit and Philadelphia. What a banger we get on Sunday night as well. We get that afternoon slate right in to Detroit and Philadelphia. Tell me that this is just not an amazing spot. Of course, this game brought to you each and every Sunday here by our friends at Bet365. They got specials running all season long on multiple days of the week. Thursday night football, you get a $10 safety net bet. On Sunday night football, they do a $365,000 jackpot. If you bet at least $10 on the first touchdown scorer, if that person scores the final touchdown of the game, you get a split of the pot there in bonus bets. So, I mean, it's like, it's great. And you get paid even if your guy does score first. And so if he scores last, you get a split of that. And then on Monday Night Football, which is the game we're talking about right here, that we'll be talking about a little bit later, 50% super profit boost token on same game parlay. So again, that is to go along with one of the better menus in all of the online sports book realm there, Noops. So glad to have Bet365 on board for all of our Sunday Night Football coverage.
It's a great book. And again, I always talk about the deli menu, and no one has a bigger menu than 365. Every possible bet you could even think of is there. So sign up, take advantage, not just some great offers in terms of bonuses, but week to week, game to game, everything you could possibly want.
So the Detroit Lions are my number 2 ranked power ranked team in my ratings, and they go in to take on Philadelphia as 2.5 or 3-point dogs. A 46.5 is our total here in this one. We all know what's going on in Philadelphia, the drama basically around A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown goes on Twitch. He's live streaming Madden this week and tells people to drop him in fantasy this week if they wanted to try and win. That said, just like we talked about with Denver, Philadelphia continues to find ways to win, and they have gone out there and they've utilized other options to get things done with all of this. Defense has played well. The offense just hasn't really clicked at points. I guess the same thing can't be said, though, Noops, about Detroit, where it looks like they've really kind of found their stride on both sides of the ball. Just a fascinating, awesome Sunday night game coming out of that that Sunday afternoon window. We just have a great day, specifically great afternoon and evening of football.
Yeah, 2 big questions for me in this game is the Eagles' defense performance we saw last week against Green Bay. Was that a result of coming off the bye, or as a result of the players acquired? So was it the extra prep time they had to really get ready for that game, or is the addition of Phillips and some of the guys that they got in the secondary, has that really enabled this defense to get back to being one of the best units in the league? At the same time, really concerned about the Lions here with some possible injuries and missing guys on the offensive line. Penei Sewell is questionable. Taylor Decker is questionable. If either of those guys miss, that's going to be a big loss for the Lions. If both miss, it's going to be really tough for them to control the line of scrimmage. Now, if both are in, I think this is a great matchup for Detroit. The Eagles defense, as good as they've been, one of the worst against play action. And the Lions are one of the best play action teams in the NFL because they've got two great running backs and a great run game. You have to respect Gibbs. You have to respect Montgomery and what that offensive line can do. And that just opens up so much down the field. So if the injury report goes the way of the Lions, if we get both of those tackles in, I'm almost certainly going to have Lions plus 2.5 or some money line in my pocket. But either way, it's going to be a great game. And if the injury report goes the right way, I like Detroit. If not, it could be a scary spot for them.
I took the field goal with the Lions. And one of the things that really stood out to me that kind of got me there, Noops, was just the fact that this Detroit defense has been very solid all year long and actually is trending even in a better direction over the last month or so of the season. I mean, this is a top 10 in just about every single one of these categories that we come in here and spit out to you guys. If we're talking success rate, if we're talking EPA, if we're talking all that stuff, like they've been in the top 10 all year long. Well, they're kind of in like the top 6, 7, and sometimes 3 or 4 now in all of those categories over the last month or so of the season. And like we said, the same cannot be said about this Eagles team in this offense. I mean, they have not been able to figure out how to get it going. They lead as good as this team is. So this tells you this is a huge statement that I'm about to make here, because you know how awesome they are on 3rd and 4th and short. They lead the NFL in 3-and-out rate, which means they're not even getting to 3rd and 4th and short because they are 3-and-out and having to punt the ball back to the other team. This Philadelphia team leads the NFL in 3-and-out rate. Like that should never happen with the talent that they have and what's going on here. The play calling has been suspect at times. I can't understand why they can't manufacture plays to get the ball in A.J. Brown's hands. I don't know why Saquon Barkley is all of a sudden getting bottled up and all of that. If we just do the 4-unit comparison here, Noobs, it's 2 really good units for Detroit and only 1 good unit for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that's on the defensive side. And if I'm getting a 2-to-1 here on, again, the splitting hairs here, because the Eagles I do have at 6th in the power rating. So they're not like that far down from where I have the Lions. If I'm getting in my ratings, the better team, I'm getting a full field goal, and I'm getting a team that I think has the advantage, on a drastic advantage on one side of the ball comparatively to the other. It had to lead to a bet for me on the Lions. And honestly, as a dude who has a bunch of Eagles futures, I hope they prove me wrong in this. Like, I'll be glad to see them finally figure out how to put 60 minutes together on the offensive side, but that has just not been the case.
Yeah, again, I think Detroit is the right side here. Just those few nagging injury questions for me. But I agree, if the Eagles can win this game, and convincingly, if the Eagles can win this game by 10, 14 points, I think it really is kind of maybe the first real signal, second real signal maybe with the Packers game last week, that we need to start taking the Eagles a lot more seriously than we have.
I am one of the things here that is going to be very, very curious to me too is there a strategy from the Eagles to try to take out a certain aspect of the Lions offense? Because what we've seen from other teams is a concerted effort to try and take the run game away with the whole 1-2 punch that they have there, and then let them pass. The Lions face the 5th heaviest heavy box percentage of any team in the NFL. But the reason why I say this is kind of going to be interesting how this all goes down. The Eagles run the least amount of heavy boxes in all the NFL. 32nd. They are dead last in heavy box percentage. So do they just continue what they're doing with the kind of soft fronts? And if that's the case, then just does Jahmyr Gibbs just go nuts? And him and David Montgomery, do they just go nuts in this game? Again, crazy, awesome chess match. 2 super, super talented teams. I will say this. I think this will come down to coaching and coaching strategy and optimizing, which we know Dan Campbell has really beaten almost every coach in the NFL for trying to optimize win percentages and when to go for it and when not to go for it and all the different things, when to go for 2, when not to go for 2. Maybe the sideline actually ends up winning this thing in the end, Noops.
That's a great call. I think that is a big advantage for the Lions. We saw Sirianni last week, again, going for it on 4th and 6, one of the most curious decisions I've seen all season. And Sirianni does lean towards being aggressive, which is generally better. But I think Campbell has a much better sense of the moment here. And like you said, if they can be healthy and control in this game with the run, if the Lions get a lead, the Eagles are not a comeback team.
Guys, if you have not done so already, hit that subscribe button down below. Every single thing we do, absolutely free. Appreciate you supporting the channel. And, of course, we'll be back for Monday Night Football on Monday as well. For Noops, I am Matt. Good luck on all your Week 11 bets.
Bet $5, get $300 in bonus bets, win or lose, with Bet365 Sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, 21 plus only. T&Cs apply. In-app only.